So a few things. I had a really fun conversation with a friend of mine who's a pilot. We got all sort of excited about all the ways that piloting and aircraft connect with building your vessel to get you up and out of the matrix of the swamp. You never leave your plane on a dirty airfield or let unlicensed people. I had a really fun conversation with a friend of mine who's a pilot. We got all sort of excited about all the ways that piloting and aircraft connect with building your vessel to get you up and out of the matrix of the swamp. You never leave your plane on a dirty airfield or let unlicensed people fly it, seedy mall or whatever. Try to stay away from them. The more you expose yourself to things that are out of alignment with what you want to become, and these are places as well, you're going to compromise and you're going to get into the minefield and the mindset of those places. It doesn't mean that you can never go and buy your groceries again. It just means that you're going to think about the environments you want to be in, and if you do go into places that are less favorable, you're going to be very conscious of mitigating and neutralizing it in some way. A good pilot does not let an unlicensed person fly his plane. Boundaries. We do not let people into our world, into our private personal life that are unlicensed. They might not even be licensed to fly their own being, much less to fly with us or to fly our plane. So we have to be very boundary conscious around people. Maintenance of the aircraft and of the instrument is paramount. We have to maintain these things. Like we have to check in with our mind frame. Are we thinking for ourselves? All the de-stuffing tools and approaches that we discussed. That's our maintenance. Those are our instruments. Our infrared sauna, our training routine. Those are instruments, and we service ourselves constantly servicing ourselves. Annual service of the entire aircraft is every 100 hours if flying is regulated. If we're regulating our being to become a great craft, we have to have a steady, consistent intervals of service, sleep, reflection, meditation, integration of all the things that we're talking about today. Those are all equivalent to service intervals. So we really have to take care of this vessel. We have to really think of it as a vessel. Getting your vessel off the ground is like going from a caterpillar to a butterfly. You need to build a new vessel, which is hard work that no one can do for you. You have to change everything about your operation systems. You can't help a butterfly get out of the cocoon, spread its wings and fly. It is hard work. It is very hard work for that butterfly to emerge from the cocoon. Sometimes, people have tried to interfere and intervene, and then the butterflies don't fly. One thing that I wrote on my little sheet here is, and as Simon just pointed out to me, which I appreciated, I wrote rebirth. So it's like going through the neck of the bottle was a rebirth. You're becoming reborn. And again, there's more biblical connections there, but it is kind of like that. You're going through this narrow opening. I was thinking about that because of the butterfly and the caterpillar. It's moving into a new dimension, moving into a new state of being. It is a new birth, but you need to be able to rocketeer yourself up and out. You have to have a great vessel. You need a new system to navigate a new field. If you're going to be operating like an eagle over the landscape, you need a different system than when you were a sheep. You must overcome the terrain and, in fact, work on multiple terrains. So when you become the eagle, when you take flight and you're no longer a sheep, you've got hills, you've got mountains, you can land on the water. Like you have all these options. So you get to play on them, but you need to overcome different terrain as well and learn how it feels to be on that terrain, how to be on that terrain. You must have a vision for where you want to go, and from there you can develop your user requirement and build the system. So what's a user requirement? The user requirement is the top level description of what you want. So what is that? You want to live the exalted life. So the personal requirements that are needed for living that exalted life. So your user requirement is, I want to live the exalted life. So in order to do that, you have to do the things that enable you to reach that user requirement. There's much to contend with, but you must persevere, persist in the struggle. So that plane, when it's starting to get off the ground, it's like it's finding its balance, it's finding its place. The hardest part is getting that lift off. But then you're going to be up and you're going to be cruising. And you might hit a few storms and you might have to navigate some things, but the point is you're no longer going to be stuck on the ground anymore. You can land, you can take off again. You don't have to stay in flight for the rest of your life. You have the power, the ability to have options. You're not stuck. You're not confined. You're not held captive. Okay, boundaries. Navigation tells us not only where we will go, but also where we won't go. You know what your vision is. You know where you want to be. You know you want to be outside this bottle, and you want to be in life. But if you don't know where you don't want to go, you might wind up in another bottle. Wouldn't that be awful? So your boundaries, you want to be very clear on where you want to be, and let that also help guide you to clarity on where you don't want to wind up. We need to take care to watch our navigation instruments so as not to veer off course. If you can often feel as a pilot like you're flying absolutely perfectly, and yet you're doing a dead man spiral into the ground. In these situations, apparently, if those pilots had read their navigation devices, their instruments, their instruments would have indicated to them that they're not going where they think they're going, and they're not flying up, they're flying down. So basically, this means looking at those things, your fantasies, your illusions, your dysfunctional emotions. Those are your navigation instruments. They're going to tell you. And your feelings, of course, your feelings, but you can't always, you can trust your feelings to a point. The problem is that we're so programmed that there's so much confusion and chaos happening in our feelings. But we can watch whether we're acting functionally, whether we're thinking clearly, whether where our thoughts are coming from, if they're coming from our own mind. Those are all our navigation instruments. And you must trust those instruments rather than getting caught up in the moment. Because when you're caught up in the moment, your instruments will be telling you something, you're not paying attention, and you may be taking a dead man's dive. The reason you want to follow the system, not the feeling, is because often you'll react emotionally to a situation. Your instruments will tell you that you're being manipulated by a controlling person, for example, or that your emotions are being exploited, and you know you should not engage. So you know that moment, and everything's indicating to you. You're being controlled, you're being toyed with, it's a cat and mouse game, this is coming along, but you engage anyway because you don't want to listen to the navigation instruments, and then you'll wind up having a costly exchange that will cause you a setback. When a pilot is navigating a course, and again, this is just what I'm told, everything that they expect is on their flight plan. If it's not on the flight plan, it's not on the flight. It's like not going to happen. The things that are going to happen are in the flight plan. So all the things you don't want in your life, they don't exist on your flight plan. So when you consider your flight plan, so when you're thinking about your exalted life and what you want it to be like, and how you want to live, and your values and your whole living system, if there are things, if they're not on there, they're not on there for a reason. Make sure that you're clear that they're not on there because you don't want them on there. Situational awareness. That's a big one with pilots. Situational awareness is being conscious of your surroundings and what's developing. It means your mind is aware of what's occurring. So for example, there's always road signs and weather patterns are always developing around you. There's always signs of what's happening. Like for example, with other people, let's just use that as an example right now. You'll always get signs before something happens. You might not have a lot of time. You might not get a lot of signs, but there will be signs. You have to have situational awareness. You need to, and then you have something called the master reference, which is the central measurement point. It's your point of connection. In this case, it's your point of connection with source. So let source be your master reference. So what is your master reference? Well, if you want it to be the exalted life, then that's source. That's source creator. So that becomes the master reference. Is everything aligned to that? If the answer is yes, or if it's going in the right direction, you're going to be in very good shape. Measure everything around the master reference to align as the alignment and harmonization point.